They called it a celebration. I called it a test. I hadn't been back to my parents' house in over 7 years. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when my mom had surgery. But that Saturday afternoon, I stepped out of a black sedan and walked up the driveway like I wasn't carrying the weight of everything they never asked about. I didn't come to be welcomed. I came to see what had changed, if anything. They were throwing a party for my younger brother, Tyler. He'd just been promoted to lieutenant. Fresh new bars on his shoulder, clean photos in his dress blues, and a backyard decked out like a Pinterest military theme board. Flags, cupcakes with camouflage frosting, one of those big banners that said, "Our Hero" in bold block letters. My parents, Gran and Miriam Rourke, had invited what felt like half of Fayetteville. Old neighbors, army friends, church people. People I hadn't seen since high school. Most of them didn't even make eye contact when I walked in, like I was a distant cousin someone had warned them about. My mom looked up from the food table, blinked once like she forgot I was invited, then motioned vaguely toward the backyard. "There's a folding chair by the side grill," she said. "You can sit there. No hi, no glad you're here. Just instructions," like I was one of the wait staff. I walked past the guest list table, every name printed in fancy calligraphy. Tyler's friends had placards. Even my dad's old drill buddy had a reserved seat. Mine? Nowhere. I didn't ask. I didn't react. I found the chair by the grill, right where she said, and sat down. Paint chipped, legs uneven, propane tank next to me hissing like it was doing all the talking. From there, I had a great view of the inside. A projector looped Tyler's boot camp footage, him standing tall, saluting, fake smiling for photos. My mom was giving a speech. People clapped at every pause. My dad, in his crisp polo with the retired colonel emblem, stood nearby like a statue of authority, occasionally nodding, never looking in my direction. Then it came. "So proud of Tyler," he said, raising his glass. "He's everything this family stands for. Discipline, honor, focus. He never gave up, even when things got tough." I knew what that last line was for, aimed directly at me without saying my name. I didn't give him the satisfaction of looking away. An old neighbor leaned over during the toast and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "Isn't your daughter here too?" My mom smiled tight. "She left the military years ago. Didn't really take to it," she said, like she was talking about a failed dish from a recipe blog. Didn't take to it? They rewrote history like they were the editors of my life. The truth? I didn't walk away. I was pushed out, and they were the ones who helped push. But see, this isn't just a sad homecoming story. This is a revenge story dressed in sciences. I didn't come back for closure. I came back because some ghosts don't stay buried forever. From my corner by the grill, people started asking me to grab napkins. Someone needed extra forks. Someone else spilled tea on the deck. And just like when I was a teenager, I became the automatic helper. No one asked if I was okay. They just assumed I was available. The invisible daughter. The problem child turned practical errand girl. I made 3 trips inside without anyone offering to switch out. My mom brushed past me on the way to the cake stand and didn't even say thank you when I handed her the matches. At one point, I was in the kitchen refilling lemonade and overheard my dad say, "We raised one real soldier at least." A couple of his army friends chuckled like it was some inside joke. By the time I got back outside, every seat was filled, every one but mine. And it was still just me and the hissing propane. That's when I saw it, the shadow in the glass door, the reflection of me. Hair pulled back, black windbreaker, face unreadable. And I thought, they really believe I'm nothing. But I know better. They don't know what I've been doing. They don't know who I've become. They don't know I've stood in rooms their precious army only whispers about, rooms where orders don't get debated. They get carried out in code. And in that moment, I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt patient, because sometimes the best response to being erased is to show up so quietly powerful that they don't even see the explosion coming. Let them laugh. Let them toast. Let them believe the version of me they built to protect their pride. Sooner or later, they'll see the real one. And when they do, they'll wish I'd stayed invisible. There's something humiliating about being erased on paper, especially when you're the one who lived the story. It was 7 years ago. I was 29, standing in the admin office at Raven Ridge Military Institute, sweat still on my back from the night op. I'd just pulled 3 cadets out of a live fire kill zone because our CO misread a perimeter map and was too arrogant to double-check it. I called the abort. I took the heat. I saved them. And for that, I got flagged for insubordination. The report came out 3 days later, rewritten to paint me as the problem. Said I compromised operational integrity, broke formation without command clearance. What they didn't say was that I prevented a disaster, that I made a call no one else had the guts to make. But when your commanding officer writes the report and your father signs off as the official reviewer, your truth doesn't stand a chance. Colonel Grant Rourke, my father, wasn't just another evaluator. He was a respected figure in the training commission. His name meant legacy, discipline, structure. Mine? I was the black mark. He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just came to my dorm with a withdrawal form and said, "This is for the best. You need to think about your future." I remember staring at the line where I had to list my reason for leaving. Family pressure wasn't allowed. Command retaliation would be flagged. The admin officer, eyes full of fake sympathy, suggested I check personal reasons. So I did. And just like that, I was gone. No ceremony, no handshake. No mention in newsletters, just a quiet exit out the side gate, duffel in hand, future erased with a stroke of someone else's pen. If any of you've ever had someone rewrite your story, someone who was supposed to protect you, drop a comment. Seriously, just one line, because I promise there are more of us than people think, and silence has this way of feeling personal, until you realize how many people were told the same lie. I didn't spiral after leaving. I didn't fall apart. That's what they probably expected. But instead of collapsing, I vanished. Intentionally. 3 weeks later, I got a message through an encrypted line. No name, no intro, just coordinates and one sentence. Bring your records, leave everything else. I showed up at a nondescript office in Arlington. Looked like an old accounting firm. Inside was a woman in civilian clothes with the posture of a drill sergeant and the smile of a debt collector. She handed me a sealed packet. "We're not military. We're not listed. We're Orion Division. You'll be cleared, not known. Paid, not ranked. Operative, not officer. Still interested?" I signed before she finished talking. The first 6 months were observation drills, intel gathering, silent embeds, red flag detection. No badges, no public records. I learned how to blend, how to parse data like stories, how to disappear even in broad daylight. And for the first time in years, nobody expected me to be anyone's daughter. Nobody cared who my father was. Just what I could do. And I was good. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed something real. I stopped chasing promotions. I started chasing patterns. My days were quiet, strategic. My name didn't echo through bases, but my work whispered through channels that actually mattered. In year 2, I uncovered a procurement leak between 2 contractors in Ridgeport before it ever made the press. In year 3, I identified a deep fake surveillance loop that nearly compromised a joint op. Each time, the win wasn't in recognition. It was in the prevention. I became the kind of officer they said I wasn't built to be. My parents never asked where I went. They told people I'd burned out, that I never really understood what it meant to serve. I let them talk. Sometimes silence is sharper than confrontation. But the thing about being a ghost is, eventually, someone's going to walk into a room and recognize the shadow. That moment was coming. I felt it every time I glanced at the flash drive locked in my drawer, containing the original unedited Raven Ridge report, the one someone had quietly slipped to me during my Orion onboarding. No explanation, no signature, just a quiet nudge from someone who knew I wasn't crazy. I didn't open it for months. But when I finally did, I saw it. The digital signature, Grant Rourke, credential 442. My father didn't just approve a bad report. He edited it. He went into the file, changed the wording, shifted the blame, removed the CO's mistake, and replaced it with a paragraph about reckless deviation from protocol by subordinate, and then had the gall to hand me a withdrawal form like it was my failure. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I printed it, filed it, logged it under Echo Rift. Because one day, this file would find daylight. And when it did, it wouldn't come with fireworks or payback speeches. It would come with one question. Do you still stand by this report, sir? A week after the party, I got the assignment. Routine site observation. Location, Fort Brandon. 2 hours from where the confetti had barely finished falling in my parents' backyard. Primary subject, newly promoted Lieutenant Tyler Rourke. My brother, the golden child with a textbook career and spotless boot polish. He was the kind of officer the system liked. Predictable. Polished. Comfortable in a uniform that came with applause. I read the mission brief 3 times just to be sure. There was no directive to interact, no request for intel, no mention of my personal connection to the subject. But Orion knew. They always did. The file didn't say it out loud, but the subtext was clear. You ready to walk into your own past? I packed light. Tactical slacks, black windbreaker, boots laced clean. No rank, no insignia, no questions. The drive was quiet. I didn't put on music, just the low hum of tires on pavement and the occasional staccato of past memories kicking at the door. I passed signs I hadn't seen since I was 20. Caution, live fire range. Authorized personnel only. My hands tightened on the wheel when I saw the guard tower come into view. Same structure, same camo netting, different me. The parking lot was gravel and sparse. Civilians had to leave their cars half a mile out. From there, it was a walk across red dirt, past chain link fences, motion sensors, and concrete walls that held more secrets than they'd ever admit. The sun was already cooking the yard by the time I passed through the front gate. They didn't ask who I was, just scanned my barcode-only Orion clearance and waved me through with a nod. Ghosts don't need names to enter. I found a spot on the second row of the bleachers, not too high to stand out, not too low to be dismissed. From here, I could see everything. The unit was mid-drill, movement to contact formation, loud, rigid, all posture, little flow. Then I saw him. Tyler, front and center, chest proud, eyes forward, giving instructions like he was bred for it. The cadence was clean, but the execution? Sloppy. 2 recruits were out of sync on lateral coverage. One had his rifle tilted 5 degrees off alignment. Nobody corrected them. Nobody but me saw it. Tyler didn't spot the gaps, didn't see the drift in the left flank. He was focused on presentation. But when you've spent years studying operational breakdowns, you notice the cracks before they widen. I scribbled a note into my slate. Then I noticed the whispers. They started subtle, just a few glances over shoulders, murmurs between junior officers, eyes tracking toward me. And then came Sergeant Holstrom, old school, broad frame, moved like a tank on gravel. He walked the perimeter like he owned the place, until he didn't, until he saw me. His eyes locked in, paused mid-stride, then shifted direction like something had snapped tight inside his spine. He marched straight toward the bleachers. Cadets noticed. Instructors quieted. The tension shifted like a weather front. Holstrom stopped 5 feet from me. No smile, no hesitation. Then he stood at attention. "General Rourke," he said loud enough for 3 rows to hear. "Ma'am, I wasn't informed you'd be observing today." You could hear someone drop a water bottle 2 rows back. I looked up, calm, steady. "At ease, Sergeant. I'm off duty. Keep this quiet." He nodded. No confusion, just respect. "Yes, ma'am." He turned and walked off like nothing had happened, but the ripple had already hit the surface. Across the field, Tyler dropped his training rifle. It hit the concrete with a sharp clang. He didn't pick it up. Didn't even move, just stared. I didn't look at him, didn't need to, because every eye that had once slid past me now couldn't look away. That's what rank does. It makes noise, even when whispered. I stayed 10 more minutes. No reaction, no shift in posture. I was just there, and that was enough. Then I stood, slow and measured, and took the long path around the field, past the obstacle course, past the dorm barracks, past the room where I used to sit and get told I wasn't built for leadership. Nobody stopped me. Nobody dared. The guard at the south gate didn't say a word as I scanned out. He just glanced at the tablet and saluted as I passed, not because he knew my name, because the uniform spoke without needing to shout. Back at my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't pour a drink or write a report. I just sat and thought about the sound of Tyler's rifle hitting the floor. That sound? That wasn't just shock. It was the moment a story cracked in two. The one they built, where I failed, where I quit, where I didn't belong, just collided with the truth, and they couldn't unhear it. The dust hadn't even settled from the salute when the sound started. Low, distant, a rumble more felt than heard, the kind of sound that makes seasoned instructors stop mid-command and look up. At first, I thought it was coincidence, maybe an unrelated recon pass. But as the vibration thickened, as the cadence of boots on the parade ground faded beneath it, I knew better. The helicopter was coming for me. It breached the horizon fast, matte black, no unit markings, rotor blades slicing the sky like it owed them nothing. It hovered briefly over the southern field, then descended directly behind the drill formation. Dust kicked up like smoke signals. Cadets ducked. Officers shielded their eyes. The moment the skids touched ground, the side door opened. A woman stepped out, civilian suit, no visible rank, hair pinned clean, holding a locked silver case. I didn't need to squint. Orion. She walked toward me with purpose, heels crunching on gravel like percussion. No words, just eye contact and a slow handoff. The case was heavy, 2 biometric seals, 1 thumbprint, 1 iris scan, mine. I didn't blink. I popped the first latch, pressed my thumb to the panel. The second seal blinked green. The interior lining unfolded like origami, revealing a red envelope, foil stamped with one line. Directive 304B, Internal Records Dispute, Class A clearance. Below it, a signed lead, Major General Callie Rourke. Every word felt like a knuckle to the ribs of the narrative my family had built. The cadence restarted faintly in the background, but no one was really listening anymore. The field wasn't just a training ground now. It was a stage, and every player had gone silent. I stood, not quickly, not like a speech was coming, just deliberately. I tucked the envelope into my coat and nodded once at the Orion officer. She nodded back and turned, vanishing into the helicopter just as quickly as she'd arrived. The rotor spun back up, slicing the silence open again. I didn't look at Tyler. I didn't need to, but I knew he was watching. Everyone was, because whatever people thought they knew about me just got rewritten in real time. This wasn't just about a salute anymore. This was a declaration that someone like me, dismissed, discredited, erased, could not only come back, but come back with authority. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I stopped by a quiet relay point just outside the city, a secure Orion comms hub that operated out of a disguised radio tower. Inside, I ran the report packet through a secure decrypt, confirmed what I already suspected. The directive wasn't passive, it was active. The Federal Security Review Council had flagged a legacy clearance abuse pattern, one tied directly to an altered file from Raven Ridge 7 years ago. The same week, I was forced out. One name appeared in the access log, Grant Rourke, Credential 442. I sat there, blinking at it. The system didn't guess. It didn't speculate. It matched credentials to hard log entries. My father hadn't just approved the report. He edited it, personally. And now, that action had triggered an official investigation. The timeline was brief, 48 hours to prepare evidence. 1 review session at federal level. 2 parties required to be present. One of them, me. The other, him. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, those years were long gone. But because the silence finally had shape. For years, I carried the weight of a truth I could never say out loud. A choice I was punished for. A legacy I was cut out of. And now? Now the truth had a signature, and it wasn't mine. The next morning, the air outside Fort Brandon was different, tense, hushed, like everyone had heard something they weren't sure they were allowed to repeat. I walked through the civilian lot with my badge face down, past the same chain-link fence, past the same gate, and there he was, Tyler, waiting, back straight, arms crossed, no smile. He didn't say hi, didn't move, just looked at me like he was trying to piece together a face he thought he knew. "I need to talk to you," he said, voice flat. "Not here," I replied. We walked the outer edge of the facility to an old maintenance shed. I unlocked it with my Orion override tag. Inside, it smelled like oil and old secrets. He closed the door behind us. "You gave me that binder," he said. "The one after my promotion. I hoped you'd read it," I said quietly. "You planted something in it." I didn't deny it. "I left a door. You stepped through it." His jaw clenched. What was on the other side? I opened the slate, tapped in the access string, and turned it toward him. He read it once, then again, finally softly. "Credential 442, that's—" "Dad," I said. His breath left like he'd been hit in the stomach. "He always told us you cracked, that you weren't cut out for this." I didn't flinch. He needed a version that made him look clean. Silence, then, "Why didn't you tell me? What would have been the point? You believed him." He looked away, then back. "I don't anymore." The Federal Security Review Center isn't built for comfort. It's all sharp corners, cold lights, and chairs that feel like punishment before the hearing even begins. The kind of place where truth isn't spoken. It's submitted, documented, sealed, then shelved in a vault no one mentions again. Tyler sat next to me in civilian clothes. No uniform, no rank badge, just a plain black shirt and quiet resolve. It wasn't the same energy he carried at Fort Brandon. That was posture. This was purpose. He didn't speak. Neither did I. Across the table sat 3 review officers, 2 men, 1 woman. No names, just clearance badges and tired eyes. Then the door at the far end opened. Grant Rourke walked in like it was still his war room. Pressed collar, clean shave, regulation posture. He nodded to the panel, then, just for a second, to Tyler, not to me. He took the seat across from us without a word. The lead officer started reading. "Colonel Rourke, this session has been convened under Directive 304B. You are here to respond to credential-linked document alterations tied to Raven Ridge Institute, dated 7 years prior." The older man continued. "The digital record logs indicate your access ID, Credential 442, was used to manually modify a field report. Do you acknowledge the signature?" My father didn't blink. "Yes." No hesitation, no denial. "Were you instructed to make the alteration?" He exhaled, as if he was the one doing the hard work here. "No, it was my judgment call. At the time, I believed it was in the best interest of the institution." The female officer raised an eyebrow. "To falsify a cadet's record?" He paused. "To preserve the credibility of the command structure. A failure report undermines the perception of control." I saw Tyler tense beside me, but I stayed still, because I'd expected this exact answer. Control, image, perception. That's all he ever cared about. Tyler stood. No one prompted him. "My sister was that cadet," he said. The room shifted. Slight, but it shifted. I didn't know until 3 days ago, but I've read both versions of the report. I've seen the logs. My father let that lie stand for 7 years and let our entire family believe it. The panel listened, not interrupting. Tyler's voice was calm, but his knuckles were white. "I grew up thinking she quit, that she cracked." He used her story as a warning for what not to become. He turned toward our father. "You built your legacy on her silence." Grant Rourke didn't flinch, didn't defend, didn't apologize. He looked at Tyler the same way he looked at cadets who broke formation, with that cold, quiet disappointment that made you question your own perception of right and wrong. The panel spoke again. "Colonel, do you object to reinstating the original report and purging the modified entry from all official training databases?" He leaned back slightly. No objection. Just like that, no remorse, no resistance, just compliance. I spoke for the first and only time. You didn't lose your legacy because of us. I let it hang in the air. You lost it because of who you chose to protect. He didn't respond. He never really had. The panel called for recess. 15 minutes. When we returned, the verdict was already printed. The chair cleared his throat. Effective immediately, Colonel Grant Rourke is to be relieved of all remaining advisory roles and transitioned into early retirement without distinction. A pause. All service record modifications made under Credential 442 will be reversed. Original documentation will be restored. They didn't look at him. They looked at me. Major General Rourke, your record has been cleared. No further action. That was it. No parade, no public apology, just the quiet correction of a lie that took 7 years to die. We walked out of the building into the kind of dusk that feels more like a bruise than a sunset. Tyler walked beside me, not behind. He didn't say anything for half a block. Then, he really believes he did the right thing. I nodded. That's what makes it dangerous. He looked down at his hands. Do you feel better? No, I said. But I feel lighter. He nodded like he understood the difference. We passed a row of empty benches outside the security wall. One had a plaque that read, "Integrity is not inherited, it's earned." Tyler sat for a second, palms on his thighs, staring at nothing. I spent years trying to live up to him. I sat next to him. I know. He turned to me. Does it make me weak if part of me still wants his approval? I looked at him and didn't answer right away. No, I said finally. It makes you honest. The difference is, you know better now. He breathed out slow, then reached into his jacket and pulled out his rank pin. He turned it in his palm like it didn't belong there anymore. This used to mean everything. And now? He handed it to me. It means I was looking in the wrong direction. I didn't say a word, just closed my fingers around it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat there long enough for the wind to shift. And when we finally stood, he walked beside me, not as the golden sun, but as someone finally seeing things as they were. The envelope arrived 2 days later. No return address, just my last name scrawled across the front in blocky handwriting I hadn't seen since high school. Rourke. Inside was a small silver badge. No rank, no title. Just wait. Underneath it, a sticky note. Don't wear it. Carry it. T. I set it on the table and didn't touch it for hours. Tyler didn't reach out again, not with words. Instead, a transfer notice came across my Orion terminal. Internal request, shift to Systems Integrity Oversight, Civilian Support Unit. No press release, no farewell party from Fort Brandon. He walked away from the page our parents had written for him, just like I had years before. Only difference was, he still had a family to say goodbye to, and he chose not to. That meant something. He showed up outside Orion headquarters the following week, hair trimmed close, civilian jacket zipped up, the silver badge tucked inside the lining. Not displayed, just kept. We didn't talk about our father, didn't talk about the tribunal. We just sat across from each other at a small table near the window of a coffee shop that didn't ask questions. I'm not ready to forgive him, Tyler said quietly, eyes on his cup. You don't have to, I said. He stirred but didn't drink. He raised us to believe that duty means never hesitating. I nodded. Then maybe this, I said, tapping my hand lightly near his coat, is the first time either of us actually lived it. He looked up at me, half a smile, barely there, but real. Before he left, he opened his coat slightly. The badge flashed in the inner lining. I don't want this to mean rank, he said. I want it to mean I saw something wrong and didn't look away. I nodded once. Then you're already ahead of half the brass. He bumped my shoulder, playful, familiar. See you inside. And he meant it. I watched him walk through Orion's secured entry like he'd always belonged there. Then I went the opposite direction, past the side lot, toward the hangar that held short-range intel flights. Inside, my duffel was already packed. There was no send-off, no salute, just a signature on a tablet and a short nod from an operative I didn't know. As I stepped into the jet, the air was heavy with heat, the kind that bends light and memory in the same direction. I sat by the rear window, strapped in, and let my eyes close as the engine hummed to life. They say revenge is loud, explosive, dramatic. But sometimes, revenge is quiet. Sometimes it's a file finally corrected, a father finally exposed, a brother finally listening, and a truth that no longer needs defending. From 20,000 feet, Fort Brandon looked like nothing, just a patch of structures, a ripple in the landscape. You couldn't see the lies, or the salutes, or the way an entire identity had been erased and rebuilt inside those fences. But I remembered, and I carried every piece of it with me. Not because I needed to prove something anymore, but because I'd lived through it and survived as someone they never thought I could become. There was a time I used to look for names on doors, titles on plaques, nods of approval in crowded rooms. Not anymore. These days, the only name that matters is the one no one speaks out loud, the one they whisper behind closed doors when they realize I was never the failure. I was the storm they tried to ignore, until it landed, quietly, with orders. If you've ever been the one they dismissed, the one they left off the list, rewrote out of the story, or used as an example of what not to be, tell me below. No pressure, just say, I've been there. Because these aren't just revenge stories, they're reminders that silence isn't weakness, and that sometimes the ones who walk away quietly are the ones who come back with the loudest truth. I'll be reading. CR.